Yeah. So I like to put my oils on kind of my neck, ears, bottoms of my feet. You can even do your wrists, but they are another great way to just kind of support your practice as you do yoga, that bring kind of that calm and regulation. So we are going to start off in a simple seated posture. So the way I like to teach yoga is to give you options for each pose because we're all different. We all have different ways that we're created. We all have different, I have super loose hips. So these are like, I can get, my knees down. But if this simple seated or like crisscross applesauce is not honoring to your body, I want to invite you to come into a butterfly pose where your feet are together, and you can have them further away or closer to you. I invite you just to settle into your posture here. And we're going to start with just a little bit of breathing and mindfulness. And so if it feels good for you, I invite you to close your eyes. If that doesn't feel safe, I invite you just to soften your gaze and to find a focal point, maybe on the ground in front of you. And I invite you just to breathe, just to begin to notice how your body is connecting with the earth beneath you, whatever's supporting you. Begin to notice how your body feels. Maybe you notice tension or soreness or pain. Or maybe you notice the lack of tension or soreness or pain. Maybe you notice emotion. Notice how your thoughts feel in your mind. Do they feel racing? Do they feel calm? And I invite you just to let everything be as it is. Whether it feels good to you this moment in your body and your emotions and your thoughts, or whether it doesn't feel good to you. I invite you just to allow everything to be as it is and to just breathe. If you have your oils, you can bring them up to your nose. If you have them on your hands, just begin to smell. And if you aren't using oils, I invite you just to notice how the air kind of goes in through your nose, maybe even smells in the room. And then as you exhale, maybe a little open mouth, it's kind of like a sigh, a release. And then again, drawing that breath in, maybe just a little longer and slower. And a nice open mouth exhale. Just releasing any tension, just releasing anything with that exhale. And drawing that breath into the lower parts of your ribs, allowing your ribs to umbrella out on all sides. And then as you exhale, coming back in. And maybe that's a new sensation for you. Maybe that feels different. So I invite you just to play with it, explore it. And as you breathe and as you find this rhythm of drawing that breath in a little deeper, allowing your ribs to umbrella, allowing your diaphragm to drop lower. And then that open mouth kind of exhale. Maybe it's just a slow, long exhale. Finding that rhythm. And as you do that, I invite you to tune in, make your focus what you hear. Noticing sounds, maybe it's your breath, maybe it's sounds in the distance, maybe it's the animals. Again, noticing maybe your eyes are closed, maybe they're open, but just wherever they are, just noticing light, dark, shapes, colors. What do you see? Noticing the smells and the tastes. Noticing the temperature of your body. Noticing how your body moves as you breathe. And then all at the same time, bringing all five senses into your awareness: sound, sight, smell, taste, touch. This is how we experience the present moment. And as we are experience the present moment with our five senses, I invite you just to release the past and I release the future. And just invite yourself and allow yourself to just be here now. And as you breathe, I don't know what it is that you need this evening, but I invite you just to breathe in. Maybe it's a word or a phrase. Maybe it's grace. Maybe it's peace. Maybe it's rest, life. Whatever a word or phrase is, whatever it is that you need, I invite you with every inhale to just breathe that in. And then with every exhale, just to release everything else. Breathing that in, breathing that word or that phrase. And then exhale, releasing everything else. I invite you just to come to that rhythm of breath that is long and wide and slow. And then that exhale that's releasing. And maybe you exhale through your nose or your mouth, whatever honors your body this evening. And I invite you just to bring your hands to your knees. And as you breathe, I invite you to kind of tuck your tailbone under and then rock it back to kind of arch your back. I want to invite you to kind of notice the tucking of the tailbone and arching. And then I want to invite you to find that center, that space in the middle. That's your neutral. So when you find that neutral, and maybe you need to rock back and forth with your tailbone a little bit, and finding that neutral space, feeling those sitting bones connecting with the earth, they're kind of grounding in. And then you drawing the crown of your head, the top of your head up. So it's like this energetic, this rooting in with your sitting bones, this rising up with the crown of your head, and this falling and dropping of your shoulders down and away from your ears. And just breathe. This practice is about breath, about connecting our movements with our breath. This joining, the word yoga means to join, to yoke. So if you find that your mind wanders, and it will, just offer yourself gentleness and grace, and then draw your breath back, or draw your focus and your mind back to the breath, how it feels, how it sounds. Now on an inhale, your next inhale, I invite you just to draw your arms up to the sky. And as you exhale back down, now your movements are not mirroring mine, but they're connecting your inhales and your exhales. So inhale and exhale. On your next inhale, we're going to go up, and then we're going to kind of root down with our sitting bone and reach to the opposite side. And let's sit here and just kind of breathe, feeling that nice side stretch in your body. As you inhale, kind of breathing into the side ribs, those intercostal muscles. And then on your next inhale, coming up center, and then exhale, other side. Again, rooting down with that sitting bone and reaching. Again, there's this opposite energetic pull. So you feel that nice side body stretch. Breathe here, breathing into that side body. All right, inhale, center. Exhale, other side again. Inhale, center. Exhale, other side. Inhale, center. Exhale, bringing your opposite hand to your opposite knee. Bringing your gaze over your shoulder. And just breathe. Rising up as you inhale, and as you exhale, just twisting a bit more. Just breathing. Then on your next inhale, coming back center, and then exhale, other side. Using your breath to help you create more space, and as you exhale, going deeper into the twist, not forcing, but just using your exhale as your guide. Inhale, center. Exhale, one breath. And then inhale, back center. Exhale, other side. Inhale, center. And we're going to hinge from the hips here. A lot of times when you go forward, it's easy to lead with your shoulders. But we're going to inhale. And then as we exhale, we're going to hinge forward. Exhale. And then when you've reached your kind of edge, that part where your sitting bones start to pop up off the ground, that's where you want to stop. And then you can roll your shoulders, chin to your chest. And just breathe there. And then on an inhale, you can slowly walk your hands up. And then you can, if you are in the simple seated, you can bring your legs and kind of switch them back around. If you're in the butterfly, you can just stay where you are. And we're going to go through that one breath per movement. So when you're ready on an inhale, we're going to go up and then exhale. Inhale, exhale, other side. Reaching. Inhale up, exhale, opposite knee, opposite hand. Inhale, center. Exhale, other side. Inhale, center. Exhale, hinging from the hips. And then when you reach your edge, rolling forward, breathing, taking 3 breaths here. As you inhale, you can walk yourself up. And then I want to invite you just to slowly shift into onto your knees. We're going to come into a child's pose here. So your toes are touching behind you and your knees are out kind of like a V. And this is where you may want to use a block or a blanket folded up. And then you're going to spread your torso here. And you're gonna, if you need to put your forehead on a blanket or a block, we're gonna come into a child's pose. Now, if this is a little bit hard on your knees or your ankles, you can also roll up the back of your mat or a blanket and put it under your ankles. And I invite you just to notice how this posture feels. I invite you to breathe. Notice how your breath feels here. It probably feels different than when you're seated. And as best as you're able, I invite you to just draw that breath in a little longer and slower and deeper. And then exhale, finding that rhythm of receiving that breath, receiving what you need on your inhale, and then exhale, just releasing. Softening any muscles. Maybe as you exhale, even kind of just gently tucking that tailbone under. Nothing, no big movements, but just a slight tuck. We're not forcing anything. And I invite you just to notice what you're noticing. And welcome whatever it is, just allowing whatever it is that you're noticing to be there. Offering yourself the gentleness and grace that you need in this moment. Listening to your breath, smelling your breath, feeling the movement of your body as you breathe. Noticing how this posture feels. Does it feel safe? Does it feel awkward? Now, when you're ready, I invite you to gently walk your hands over to the right side. Now, we don't need to go all the way over. Just, maybe it's a gentle, maybe it's a little further. But honor your body. We're not forcing, but we're walking our hands over to the side, creating a little bit of a side stretch here. And as we inhale, we're breathing into this side of our body, the lungs, the ribs. And then your exhale, releasing, softening into the pose. And do another breath, an inhale and an exhale. And then I invite you just to walk your hands back center. Coming back into the child's pose. Centering yourself here for 2 or 3 breaths before going to the other side. And I invite you just to notice what you notice. What has shifted? What feels the same? And then when you're ready, walking your hands off to the other side. Noticing the sensations that you feel, breathing into that side body. And then exhale, release and soften. Two more breaths, an inhale and an exhale. And then I invite you to come back center. Again, just kind of noticing what you notice. Maybe there was a little release or relief. Maybe it feels different. Just notice. Next, I invite you to kind of sit back on your bottom. And then on an inhale, we're going to come up. And then we're going to exhale. We're going to thread our arm through our other arm. It's called thread the needle. So we're going to be a nice stretch kind of in your shoulder blades and shoulders. And that other arm, you can just place it wherever is honoring. Maybe it supports you in getting into the shoulder in a little bit more. But just breathe. That area that you feel sensation. Sending that breath into that area, and then exhale, surrendering into that pose. Just 2 more breaths and then come back center. And then again on the other side, on an inhale, reaching up, feeling that nice stretch. And then as you exhale, threading it through, laying on your side shoulder, finding that spot that honors you and what you need this evening. And just breathe. Inhale, receive, exhale, soften, release. Energetically sending that breath into that area that you feel the sensation. And if something doesn't feel right or there's pain, you can just come back to a child's pose. Every posture is a choice. The only thing required is your breath. And just breathe. Another breath. And then coming back center. And then I invite you to come up to a tabletop posture where your wrists are under your shoulders, your knees are under your hips, your gaze is right in front of your fingertips. Your belly is engaged, but it's not like this tense, flex. by your belly button. You want to engage it, but you still want to be able to breathe and sending that breath in. Connecting with your breath. So we're going to do some cat-cows here. And this is also some movement of the spine, some flexion and extension of the spine, and connection with our breath. So on an inhale, I invite you to kind of dip your belly, lift your tailbone and your head to the sky. And then as you exhale, starting with your tailbone, curling it under, going vertebrae by vertebrae, arching your back and chin to your chest into cat pose. Then again, as you inhale, dipping your belly, lifting your head and your tailbone to the sky to cow pose. And as you exhale, curling your tailbone. And maybe you feel like you have a lot of movement, or maybe this feels awkward. I invite you just to notice. And sometimes we get a lot of movement, sometimes we don't get very much in our spine. So I invite you just to allow yourself and your body to be exactly where it's at this evening. I invite you just to breathe and move. And if you feel free to do some other movements, maybe hips side to side. This isn't necessarily a yoga pose, but I want to invite you just to kind of get into your body, listen to your body, and notice what honors it, what feels right for it. So you can continue doing your cat pose, or you can even explore a little bit with hip and spine movement. All right, a few more breaths here. And then when you're done, you can meet me in tabletop, or if you need to take a little rest, sometimes it's easy to dump into your wrists. If you need to do a child's pose, I invite you to do that. But when we're in tabletop, kind of spreading your fingers out and leaning into your knuckles on your hands helps you not dump into your wrists. Just take a breath, connecting with your breath, receiving what you need. Maybe it's that same word or phrase, and just releasing everything else. Noticing how that experience was, that movement. And then when you're ready, I invite you to come back up to tabletop. Now, if you're more of a person that's done yoga and you want to come into a downward facing dog, I invite you to do that. But if you're newer to yoga, I want to keep this more on the gentle side. So I want you just to stay into tabletop posture. And I invite you to kind of extend one leg out to the back of you, and then to just draw it forward into a nice low lunge. Now, you don't want your knees to go over your toes. You want your knee to just be right in line with your heel and ankle. There's a lot of engagement here in your hip. And then there's a nice stretch in the front of your other leg. So I invite you to just to kind of press in to all four corners of this front foot here. And just breathe. Now, I want to invite you, and if you need to grab, if you have a block and you need to grab a block, and you can put a block and be on the block, or let me do it this side so you can see a little better. Or you can bring your hands down in between, in this called a lizard pose. So if you need to bring the floor up a little bit to you, I invite you to do that with a blanket or a block. Or you can come here into this lizard pose. And this might feel a little uncomfortable. I invite you to keep your mind focused on your breath. Keep breathing. Draw that breath in. Now, we are going to next go into something called a pigeon pose. Now, if your hips are tighter or you have some issues with your knees, you may want to do a seated pigeon pose, and I'll show you that in a moment. But you can heel toe your foot across your body and then come into a pigeon here. Now, your heel can be towards your groin, or it can be parallel with the top of your mat. Now, if that is too much for you, a seated pigeon pose is putting your ankle over your knee like this. So if the seated is more honoring for you, I invite you to do that, because pigeon is our peak pose where it's very intense. And I invite you just to breathe, whether you're in this seated pigeon pose or you're in the sleeping pigeon. Feel free, if you're in the sleeping pigeon, to come down onto your forearms if you have that ability. If you don't, that's all right. This is about listening to your body, not forcing your body. So just breathe. Again, sending that breath in. Exhale. Softening, releasing. Let's do 3 more inhales and exhales. And if this feels intense for you, that's okay. I invite you just to keep your mind focused on your breath. That inhale, and then that exhale, release. And then when you are done with your 3 more breaths, I invite you to come onto your hands and then just come back into a tabletop posture. And maybe you swing your hips side to side. If you want to do a downward dog, feel free. Maybe you want to even try and do some cat-cows. What does your body need right now? As there's some intense poses with some stretching in those areas that we oftentimes can hold so much tension and stress. And then when you feel ready, I invite you to bring that opposite leg back and then draw it in the other side. Again, being mindful that the knee is over the heel. Lots of engagement in that hip. Lots of nice stretching here. One side may feel more intense and tight than the other. That is completely normal. One more breath here. And then bringing your hands down to the inside. Maybe it's to the mat. Maybe you use a block or a folded blanket, bringing the floor up to you a bit. And then heel toe that foot over into that pigeon pose, or coming back onto your bottom into the seated pigeon pose. Having that opposite ankle over that opposite knee. Feeling that nice sensation in the hip, low back. If you're in the sleeping pigeon, maybe you come down onto your forearms. Notice if you're holding your breath or if you're breathing. And just be gentle and gracious with yourself. And then draw that breath in a little longer and slower. And exhale. Softening, releasing. I invite you to just slowly and mindfully, if you're laying down, come onto your hands and then come onto a tabletop posture. And then everyone, I invite you to just slowly come onto your back to a laying down posture. And maybe you draw your knees into your chest, rocking side to side. Maybe you keep your feet on the ground, rocking your knees side to side. Connecting with your breath. And then I just invite you just to allow your knees to just gently drop to one side. If you want to go into a full-on spinal twist, you are more than welcome to. Or you can just let your knees just gently drop to the side and just breathe. They don't have to meet the ground. You can just inhale, and as you exhale, just let gravity take them. Drawing that breath in, that word or phrase. And exhale, release. Allow yourself to feel heavy. And then when you feel ready, bringing your knees back center, rocking them side to side. And then when you're ready, letting them drop back to the other side. Again, they don't have to reach the ground. They can just gently fall to one side. Draw that breath in. Exhale, release. Letting gravity take your knees. And then you can bring your knees back center. You can do whatever final pose you want to. Maybe you draw your knees into your chest. Maybe you do something else. But then I invite you to just come into the final Savasana. Final resting pose. Letting your body long, Your feet fall to the side. Your arms can be anywhere they feel the most comfortable. And if laying on your back isn't honoring, you can put a blanket under your knees. You can bend your knees. Which is coming into this final resting pose, this place of silence and stillness. I invite you just to come to your natural breath. Allow your body to feel heavy. Notice how the earth beneath you is supporting your body. Noticing what you hear, what you see, what you smell and taste, and how you feel. Just allowing yourself to be fully in this moment. I'm going to have just a few minutes of just silence. Begin to bring into your awareness how your body feels, how your emotions feel, how your mind feels, how your spirit feels. Offering yourself the grace and the self compassion that you need. Befriend the areas that need befriending. Be gracious with the areas that need grace. Be tender with the areas that need tenderness. And just breathe those things in. As we come out of stillness, we want to be very slow and mindful. So just begin with your fingers and toes. Just super slow and mindful movement. And then your wrists and ankles, elbows and knees. Drawing the knees in to your chest, and then just slowly shifting to your side if you're laying down, to the fetal position. And I invite you just to come to that fetal position for like 5 or 6 breaths. Just be there. Just notice how it feels. Notice if it feels safe, comforting. And after you've done enough breaths, the 5 or the 6, or maybe you've counted, maybe you haven't, I invite you just to shift yourself up to a simple seated posture. Again, with our sitting bones on the ground. Maybe your hands are on your knees, or maybe you bring them hands, heart, center, your thumbs together on your heart. A few nice breaths. This hands, heart, center signifies just a heart of gratitude. So I just invite you just to bring gratitude for your bodies, for your breath, for the opportunity to practice this evening together. So may you each offer yourself gentleness and compassion that you deserve. And may your sleep be sweet tonight. Namaste, my friends.